Hi, this is Billie Beene here with a US News Flash Update. Some of my sources for this are God in the Bible, Patriot Subscribers, Hal Turner, Steve Quayle, Moon of Alabama, Stephen Gardner, plus Suspicious Observers, Texas Weather Center, plus. So let's get started. Today's date is May 13, 2024, time in Texas, about 11 a.m. And so I'm going to begin with some information from Patriot subscribers talking about the recent solar activity we had over the weekend, and we're due to get some more tonight. 1917, Fatima was also a period of strong solar activity, and it was believed by many it was a message to repent. Of a Patriot subscriber, yes, we saw Aurora'S in Kentucky, and I'd like to say thank you to Leisha E., Kim C., and Becky D. for extra support for my channel. And from Fox News, we have that Starlink satellites were affected by the G5 solar storm that happened on Saturday night. So that's going on. Now, we'll delve into what's going on with space weather. Okay, on Saturday, May, this is 13, 12, 11. We actually had the NOAA was predicting a G4. It turned out to be a G5 to 6. We have a KP index up to a 9. We saw auroras globally all over the world. Now, so that was May 11. Now, on May 12, last night, so May 12, we saw a G4 storm that had a KP of 9, no, a KP of 7. So we also saw auroras across many parts of the U.S. Now, I believe coming up tonight, May 13, we're going to have a G of about 2 to 3. KP is expected about a 6. But I agree with Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observers. It doesn't take much solar activity to produce auroras in unexpected areas because the geomagnetic shield around the Earth is now down at least 40%. So, on May 12, we had a G4 KP index of 7. We have more incoming tonight. And we saw auroras globally, including Florida, Keys, Mexico, and Puerto Rico. And now we're seeing more earthquakes take place too. So Suspicious Observers, still believes that this is incoming from the X 5.8 flare that took place on about May 11. And it may impact, as usual, satellites, spacecraft, airplanes in the air, especially in the polar areas, ham radio operators, and possibly internet and cell phone usage. Ben Davidson's theme is based on his perception of the pole shift. He's changed his prediction. It was 70% in the 2040s and 30% in the 2030s, and he's upgraded that to a higher percentage of occurring in the 2030s. And now we have this prediction that Intel Hal Turner received from May 10, 11, 12, 13. Expect within 10 hours when we have these geomagnetic storms and auroras, large earthquakes. So we saw one that occurred on May 12, and that was in, so we go down to Central America, Guatemala. On May 12, had a 6.5, and it was about 47 miles deep, or 75 kilometers deep. So it was very deep and a strong earthquake. Now today, and they've had landslides, no tsunami. So we're seeing more activity today also. Okay, from Texas Weather Center, over the weekend and into early next week, in Texas, from Austin up to Dallas-Fort Worth, over to Texarkana, down to Beaumont, Houston, Galveston. We could receive an additional 3 to 6 inches of rain, some areas 10 inches. Probability of tornado and hail is low. And we have similar forecasts for a large portion of the U.S. going on today. So it appears that flooding in Texas and in selected areas and in the U.S. is our primary threat. Some thunderstorms, but a low probability for hail and tornadoes. We have a report from Hurricane Track of gorilla-sized hail, that's about softball-sized hail, taking place in Terrell, Texas over the weekend. That's about 20 minutes west of Dallas. Suspicious observers today, May 13, is talking about this last geomagnetic storm to come, and talking about the earthquake in Guatemala and the landslide associated with the solar activity over the weekend. And Martin Armstrong believes that this solar activity will impact the U.S. economy. And Ben Davidson, a suspicious observer, says this large amount of radiation that came in has weakened the ozone layer, and he believes this is figured into his perception of a coming pole shift, and believes that the G2 to 3 KP index of 6 tonight will produce auroras down to Alaska, Canada, and the northern part of the U.S. Mary Greeley is bringing this out. We had the Guatemala 6.5 on May 12, and also we're having swarms of small earthquakes occurring that Mary Greeley believes will impact the San Andreas Fault in California. So we've had about 25 earthquakes, 2.6 to 3.6 coming up in the Baja area into California, and their depth is about 6 to 12 kilometers deep, a swarm of 25, and Mary Greeley puts out this information that the swarm is coming up San Andreas fault line may be next, which would, of course, impact all of California, especially San Diego and San Francisco. So that's going on. And now we'll talk about some economic news and political things. I'll just do a short flash. So U.S. economy is faltering. We know that. Now, Jim Lilly, PhD economist in Costa Rica. So many are talking about bank failures. They're talking about a downturn in the U.S. economy with inflation taking off. Inflation's already taken off. We see an increase in our grocery prices almost at 40%. Now, Greg Hunter interviewed Ed Dowd, formerly an economist for BlackRock, who predicts bank failures to come. And we had this from Hal Turner this morning. The Walton family that owns Walmart, and we now know Walmart was begun by the CIA and has deep underground tunnels under all the locations, sold in 3 days. They sold $1.5 billion worth of their stock, and that just is coming out February 21 to 23. So what does the Walton family know that the rest of us don't? So yeah. And this comes less than a year after the Walton family sold $400 million worth of stock. So we see a lot of the billionaires selling so much stock in the companies they operate that they're no longer the largest shareholder. So yeah, what do they know? Now, Best and Taylor are putting out some information. We are expecting this spring a double dose of cicadas in the eastern part of the U.S. This cicadas come out of the ground every 17 years to mate, but this will be 2 times. One that should come out, I think, in 2017 and 2013. They're now coming out this year together, 2024. And Best and Taylor put forth, this is like a sign about the locusts mentioned in Revelations. And now we have this. They're also putting out, JB is still flying in thousands of illegals to certain cities, and we know the Dem plan is to make them instant citizens so they can vote. And we have this about FEMA. This comes from Celeste Salome, who used to work there about 20 years in management. She left when her colleagues began to declare themselves to be God. It's believed by FEMA that 97% of U.S. citizens will willingly go into the FEMA camps, and only 3% will resist. I suggest to you, the FEMA management, if they're declaring themselves to be God, and this happened probably 10 to 15 years ago when Celeste left, these people are psychopaths and sociopaths, because I believe the current percentage of people who are awake in America is about 80%. Now we have this from Stephen Gardner, that a recent poll, 50% of U.S. citizens do not believe that JB was elected. They believe now that many of the Dem governors and the Dem election officials at a state level, plus most of the U.S. Congress, engaged in a political coup in January of 2021 and put JB in. So now we see a solid 50% of the U.S. population do not believe he was elected. And we have this. Yeah, Congress uses inside trading. Absolutely. They come in making thousands of dollars a year. After they leave a few years later, they're millionaires. And Congress would be good candidates for insider trading because they passed the legislation. They would know when a certain company was going to receive a large government contract. And Congress even passed a law, I think that was 10 to 15 years ago. The members of Congress could not be convicted for insider trading. So do we see insiders? Now I'll put this out. I do support President Trump, but I break with President Trump and his support of the current anti-Semitism bill that's going on in Congress on 2 points. One, it violates the Constitution with regard to 2 points. One is speech. It seeks to limit our speech and put that in a law. That's one. And number 2 is religion. Embedded in the anti-Semitism bill is a statement that people can be criminally charged if they state that the Jews killed Jesus. Now that is a religious belief in the Christian religion. Therefore, this anti-Semitism bill violates the Constitution on 2 points. It seeks to limit speech, and that violates our Constitution. It seeks to put into law a specific religious belief that also violates Americans' freedom of religion. So we see freedom of speech, freedom of religion being done away with via the anti-Semitism bill. I break with President Trump on this point. This concludes my flash. I love you, and I'll see you soon.